I'm Dr. Virgie Bright Ellington, and today I am so incredibly honored and privileged to be joined again on a special segment of What Your Medical Debt Doctor Wants You to Know by Mr. Jerry Ashton to give us an update on hashtag End Vet Med Debt, which is working to demand the Veterans Administration forgive unpaid medical debt for American veterans by Veterans Day tomorrow, 11/11/22, November 11th, 2022. So, Jerry, I always have to thank you so very much for your service and all you do.
Thank you so much, Virgie. And thank you for allowing me a time on your show to be able to bring you up to date with some of the latest things of the campaign that we have to relieve veterans of unpaid and unpayable medical debt, held in thrall by the very same VA hospital situation, hospital system that we go to.
Well, you've been definitely busy, very busy.
Yes, busy. And the timing of this is important too, because since we last talked, our team at Let's Rethink This, in addition to creating the campaign of End Veteran Medical Debt, endvetmeddebt.com, we also, and most recently, launched a program called Veteran Mission Possible.
Can you tell us about Veteran Mission Possible, which is, you were telling me, Jerry, that it's a veteran and civilian collaboration, essentially to right the wrongs inflicted on our nation's finest by preventing veteran suicide and ending veteran medical debt. Can you tell us about this?
Well, exactly. And you're an example of a civilian arm working, shall we say, arm in arm with us to make people aware of some of the challenges that veterans face that that the public itself is not aware of. And it's not that it's a funny thing. Veterans don't talk about their problems. They don't talk about it, so you don't hear about it. They don't talk about it to their own families. So I'm here to talk about it, that these wrongs do exist. They need to be righted. And taking medical debt off of someone's back, a veteran's back, is a good start. And when it came to my attention that thanks to Mission Daybreak put on by the VA, a contest in which they gave away $20 million, not gave away, they invested $20 million in ways in which people could reduce the number of veteran suicides that occur on a daily basis. What is the daily basis? Well, if you listen to the VA and the way that they accrue statistics, that could be 20 veterans a day will commit suicide, 20 veterans. Recent research shows that it's undercounted, probably closer to 1.5 times that. So every hour of every day, a veteran is killing himself or herself, and that's got to stop. So they came up with this campaign. There were 1,371, excuse me, applicants for 40 spots. Well, needless to say, there were a lot of losers because there were only 40 organizations that were selected, and the rest of us, myself included, by the way, not that I'm making a deal out of it, but we were left wondering, why weren't we paid attention to? Why aren't our solutions being paid attention to? So a group of us got together with the lead of LRT to start a campaign called Veteran Mission Possible. And the purpose of that campaign is to launch a separate, not contest, but collaboration in which veterans and civilians will work together to bring out the solutions that were offered to the VA, but didn't cut mustard. And keep in mind, that's pretty decent odds, so you can't really blame the VA. So many to choose from, so few to allow to get through the portals. So we're changing that. So we're asking people that are listening to you and watching you right now that they go to veteranmissionpossible.com and see what it is that we're up to. Now, another aspect of why you are important and why the work of journalists are important is because if they don't know about you, they can't do anything about you. If the public does not know about the problems, they can't possibly know about the solutions. They can't be there for the veterans. It's always nice on Veterans Day when someone comes up to me and says, thank you for your service, and not really understanding how that thank you could be turned into something more tangible. Like, for example, motivating the VA to make available their unpaid and unpayable, never again possible veteran debt and just give it up for forgiveness, which we don't do. Let's rethink this. We're a public benefit corporation. The charity I started, RIP Medical Debt, is a 501c3, more than capable of taking that debt and cleaning up the credit marks and wiping it off the map forever. So that's my motivation in this conversation we're having here today. Speaking of veterans, I'm going to be in DC the day after Veterans Day. No, excuse me, the day of Veterans Day. Your show is airing the day before Veterans Day.
Yeah.
I'll be in DC the day after, a meeting with a bunch of people from Military Veterans in Journalism, mvij.org, Military Veterans in Journalism, who are attending a Veterans Day panel event. And it's a discussion that's going to be held at the National Press Club. We're going to have people like Washington Post there, Ron Nixon, Allison Erickson of the Texas Tribune, and none other than Bob Woodward.
Yeah, cool.
Who are going to be there. And so we're going to talk about the fact that there aren't enough veterans in journalism to get the story out. Only 2% of all journalists are veterans.
And you're one of them. You're one of the few unique special. And again, thank you so much for your service.
Thank
and
you.
So that's why you're at the press club, the National Press Club, on Veterans Day tomorrow, when this airs tomorrow on Veterans Day 11/11/22, to bring attention to the issues.
That's a very important day. And a lot of Americans understand the importance. They don't understand the depth of it and how they can do something more than, not that we don't appreciate it, something more than saying thank you for your service. So one of those things is to go to my website. If you remember from our last conversation, I wrote this book with two of my friends, Robert Goff and Craig Antico.
And medical debt.
Yes.
Yes. Fabulous book. I have to
thank
say.
you. Curing America's Healthcare Crisis. And there's a misprint on it. It says founders of the $5 billion charity. That's when we'd abolished $5 billion.
Yeah, well, that needs to be updated since even we last talked. So when that book came out, when it was published, it was 5 billion with a B of medical debt abolished. And then when we talked about 6 months ago, it was up to $6 billion. And now, just in the last 6 months, that has been increased to more than $7 billion. And medical debt abolished for more than 4 million people. It's huge.
Doesn't
Good
that
stuff. Amazing.
Doesn't that feel good?
It's outstanding.
So one of the challenges is that with RIP Medical Debt, that's ripmedicaldebt.org, I helped co-found. One of the problems that RIP has was in locating veterans' medical debt. When you're being dropped off by the ambulance or you're walking in a daze, not too many people identify themselves as veterans. They just want help. So therefore, when the bill appears and the hospital tries to collect, when they realize that this is a veteran, they try to collect it from the VA. That's a very difficult process and not always successful. To the tune of about $6 billion that's owed by veterans through the auspices of the VA hospital for either approving or not approving or charging for certain accounts. So when I wrote this book, I wrote a chapter that is available for download. If people go to nvetmeddebt.com site and read through us, they'll be able to click on a link, and when they join up with us, click on a link and download a chapter 5, which is called No Thank You for Your Service.
No, thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because that's what it feels out like here. For
absolutely.
example, I wrote about 3 veterans who were not getting the best possible care or attention to the VA. I've lost one of those veterans already. Another veteran is not looking all that good, and it's all because of what could be done better that wasn't. So this is not a diatribe on the VA. Organization that large, that huge, run by bureaucracies, they're not going to have an easy job, and they're going to make it difficult for others to have an easy job of getting taken care of. So when I wrote the stories in there, it'll give you an idea and a background as to what people have suffered because they weren't properly taken care of. So is that helpful for you?
That's helpful in terms of introducing us to the issues. Jerry, one of the problems with the big bureaucracy that the VA is struggling with is that there's not a lot of VA hospitals. There's so few VA hospitals compared to the numbers of veterans that is part of the problem. So there is, as of last count, approximately only 150 Veterans Administration hospitals, VA hospitals, to serve 18 million veterans. And so if you break that down, that's average 90,000. I think the last statistic we talked about, Jerry, was 90,000 visits, ER visits a year by our veterans. There's no way that 150 hospitals could absorb that, number one. But number two, most importantly, it on average means that the average distance to a VA hospital is can be up to 3 hours on average, some more, some less, but some more. This is part of the problem. This is why our veterans end up rolling into civilian ERs, and the VA says, well, no, we didn't agree to that. We didn't agree to that care. And there you go, they're stuck.
Yeah, I gave an example in that chapter of one veteran who was visiting, an elderly veteran, visiting his wife in the hospital, a regular civilian hospital, when the nurse noticed he didn't look all that well and did a quick check on him. And it turned out that he had to have an emergency bypass operation.
Oh my goodness.
So this is the hoops that I'm talking about. So if he doesn't get that operation, he's dead. In other words, it's a lower left ventricle. It's a widowmaker. They're lucky. He's lucky he's in a hospital. But as a veteran, he knows that he's unlucky because he has to get prior authorization in some form or another. And so when they discovered he was a veteran, they called the VA system and they said, what's the problem? And they said, veteran here, heart attack. He needs to go under the knife. And the person at the other end of the line says, well, we'll send an ambulance. Now, where would the ambulance go? 3 hours away.
Exactly.
So obviously the veteran declined the opportunity to wait for the ambulance, and he proceeded to be taken in, had a very expensive operation, ended up, the claim was denied by the VA because he did not agree to be transported to the VA hospital. Now, that's the kind of bureaucratic thinking that leaves out heart, it leaves out soul, it leaves out just plain common sense.
Exactly.
This gets a bit annoying. So he ended up owing $30,000, which they took out of his savings. They had to take out of their savings. And he still ended up owing money to bill collectors, which is how I came into the picture. Because when somebody in my military group told me that there was a veteran suffering from bill collectors, being rather professional in that field myself, I said, let me at him. And so that's when I discovered him and his problem. And these are the kind of things that people need to educate themselves about.
So what can we do? So I'm not a journalist. My friends aren't journalists. My families aren't journalists. The folks that are listening to us right now, Jerry, we're not journalists. what can we do to take care of the people who took care of us? What can we do and where can we go to help our military veterans get their VA medical debt canceled? Not just their VA medical debt, as we talked about, but their medical debt canceled. What can we do?
Okay. You may not think of yourselves as journalists, but everybody in your family, and yourself included, and many of the listeners and viewers of your program are media people. There's what? LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. There are so many ways that if someone would take the time to go to the websites that I've told you about and get little glimmers of information and go back to social media and post it, that itself is helpful. You can go to Facebook and look up military groups, and you can join them as a civilian. They're always happy to have people there because your family, the guy down the street is a veteran, your brother-in-law is a veteran, your uncle, aunt. So it's being able to get the people know that they should share their stories. And that's what Navy, I'm a Navy journalist. That's what military journalists do, is get out the story about what service people, men and women, are doing so that people can both appreciate it and in some cases come to our rescue.
So tomorrow, Veterans Day, 11/11, November 11, 2022, that's what we can do to say thank you for your service. So we can go to those of us who really aren't journalists, we don't have access to the media. Where can we go? What can we do? We can go to Veteran Mission Possible. Now, Jerry, is that veteranmissionpossible.org or .com?
Veteran is VETERAN, veteranmissionpossible.com. Okay, or they can go to letsrethink.this.com. Or they can go, they can Google and find out where there's a local parade. There will be people that'll be marching down the street, some barely able to do so, but many that are young ones. So there's something like 1.3 million Americans in uniform right now. And many more millions, as you know, are civilians. So there's many a way, many website, many a Google search will help people find some way to find these people.
One thing that I thought was really helpful, that when I was looking at the site Veteran Mission Possible, I just love that. Mission Possible, not impossible, but Mission Possible at the site .com, that there are actually steps where they tell you the exact things that you can do. If we're just folks that have no contact with the media, we have nowhere to start. We're just, all we have is our devices. We have our mobile phones, our smartphones, and our laptops. That's all we have. So if you go to veteranmissionpossible.com, there's actual steps where they tell you how to contact your congressperson. So they tell you where to go. The actual site is commoncause.org. And there they actually have the lookup for your senators and representatives. And once you go there in the site, Veteran Mission Possible, there's also the script that you guys provide for us to be able to say, okay, when we call and contact our congressperson, it tells us what to say.
Okay, let me give you a better link for that. Because when we did nvetmeddebt.com, we put all those links on there. So they're much easier to find than at Veteran Mission Possible. So that would be my recommendation on that.
So nvetmeddebt.com is where we can find that.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll put all those links down below at the bottom of the link to the show. And there you go. That's how we can say thank you for your service.
And
all
Dr.
the folks that helped us.
Dr. Ellington, let me thank you for your service as a physician.
You know, you're the bestest, Jerry Ashton. Kind sir, you know, you're my favorite. As always, awesome talking with you. Thank you so much.
There's no bias on her part, I want you to know, ladies
and gentlemen. None at all. Not at all.
Well, I hope to see everybody at our websites, and I hope you see participating in the work that we do. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellington.